another few examples we're going to talk about area of kites and the area of a rhombus. So in this case, it looks like we have a kite, right? The reason we know is because the two consecutive sides are congruent, right? This is congruent to this is congruent to this, but they're not all four congruent to each other. If they were all four congruent to each other, then it would be a rhombus, right? So we have a kite, so we're going to find the area of a kite. The area of a kite is 1/2 times the diagonals multiplied together. So we already know that one diagonal, this whole thing, is equal to 20, right? So 12 plus 8, that whole thing gives us 20. We just have to figure out the other length of the diagonal, and then we can use this formula. So a couple things we know. First of all, for a kite, we know that the diagonals intersect at a 90-degree angle. The diagonals are perpendicular. So how does that help? Well, now we can use Pythagorean theorem to find, let's say, this side length, right? Because we have this right triangle. So 12 squared plus, let's call this x squared, is going to equal to the hypotenuse 13 squared. So you can use Pythagorean theorem, but you can also realize that it's a Pythagorean triple, 5, 12, 13. So this is going to be 5. Right? Another thing that we know about kites is that one of the diagonals, the longer diagonal, so specifically this diagonal, bisects the shorter diagonal, meaning it cuts it into two congruent pieces. So this is congruent to this. And if this is 5, that means that this also has to be 5. So that's just using the property of a kite, that the long diagonal bisects the shorter one. So now we know that the full length of that second diagonal is 10. So now we can plug it in to our formula, 1/2 diagonal 1. Doesn't really matter which one you call diagonal 1, diagonal 2, but say 10, and then the other diagonal is 20. So 1/2 times 10, we get 5. Times 20, we get 100 square units. Right, so just a heads up, there's a bunch of different properties that we're kind of skipping a little bit for kites, trapezoids, everything that we've talked about. I'm only highlighting the properties that are important in order to find the area. So for example, it's important to know that the diagonals intersect at a 90-degree angle. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to use Pythagorean theorem. Same thing with the longer diagonal bisecting the shorter. We wouldn't otherwise know that this is also 5. So we're just kind of trying to focus on the properties that are important to find the area.